Hello there, everybody, and welcome to my heart-to-heart soulful conversation. I'm Reverend Charlotte McGinnis, and today I look so forward to sharing a really awesome guest with you, Reverend Diane Baker. Not only does Diane do really amazing healing work and all kinds of great things, she's just a great person, a great friend of ours, and look forward to letting you all know a little more about this amazing friend of ours and this amazing soul. So Diane, thanks for joining me.
My pleasure.
Yeah, we're glad to have you here. And Diane, you are the, what is your title for ADL? You are the administrator. What is that?
I'm supposed to be the administrative director. I can't even say that with a straight face. I mean, I'm the office administrator, office manager, chief cook and bottle washer.
Yeah, that's well, whatever it is, you do a darn good job of it. And you really have. You've just taken that on and you do it so beautifully, and hear so many rave reviews, and your kindness and just how you deal with people and how you pull it all together is amazing and an inspiration. And actually, just to share with the people listening, the way I got to know you is you showed up at the Namaste Center a few years back. And was it the Way of Mastery Course of Miracles group that you first showed up for?
Yes. I was living in Asheville, had just moved there maybe a year before from Houston and retired. I thought I was going to be living in Asheville, but I was getting the feeling that it wasn't exactly the right place. So a friend, Lori France, asked me if I wanted to go to lunch with her in Hendersonville, but before we were going to have lunch, I had to go with her to this meeting at this place called the Namaste Center. And I'm thinking, oh my God, I don't want to go. Of course, that's how spirit works, you know? Yeah, so fortunately, we did have lunch, and I ended up showing up at the meeting, and I was so welcomed by all the people, all the people that in the circle there. There were men and women. We were talking about the Course in Miracles, which I had become enraptured with, but was studying alone and had never talked to other people about it and didn't really know how to interpret it that well. So it was such a relief to find other people who were studying the same materials and thinking about the same things. And the thing that was most marked for me was that everybody talked about their own experiences. They were really walking the talk, you know? So I just fell in love with the Namaste Center and you and the whole group, and it decided within that 2-hour class that I was moving to Hendersonville. Never looked back.
Yes, so. and boy, lots has happened since then. Actually, you became very active. You taught the Power of 8 group at Namaste. Of course, you were our office administrator, manager. You were on the board of trustees, and then we decided to close that down, and we just snagged you for ADL. So there you go, Diane. You're a treasure, and thanks for saying yes to all of us along the way.
I consider myself very lucky. And, you know, sometimes when you're in the right place with the right people, spirit just throws you in there, and that is your job. Just say yes, you know?
Yeah. And you know what? I don't want to let that just pass by, Diane. That is a powerful statement within itself, is just being willing to say yes, you know, and knowing that would you like to elaborate on that? Maybe synchronicity flow, just saying yes to life?
Oh, well, I mean, I bet you there are lots of people listening who've had similar experiences. If you do say yes, even if you're afraid, especially if you're afraid, you know, you find out that, at least it's been my experience, that I found out that my life opened up in a whole new way. I remember that, gosh, it was the late 70s. I was doing a lecture tour with the Inner Peace Movement, and that was up in San Francisco. It was as a part of a team, and the whole lecture tour was winding down. I had sent all my money back to Dallas, where I had an apartment to pay bills with. So I was coming back on pretty much a budget. And I really didn't have money to travel on, but somebody said, I'll give you a ride. And we're going to stop at this camp up in the mountains of New Mexico on the way there. And I said, well, I can't pay for that. Spirit said, go and do it anyway. So I went to the camp. We're in the mountains of New Mexico. It's getting dark. It's getting cold. I'm standing outside the registration office and saying, guardian angels, if you got something up your sleeve, this is the time to reveal it. And up walks a friend of mine from Dallas who had just arrived and said, Diane, I checked your mailbox in Dallas before I left, and here's your income tax refund check.
Oh my gosh.
Otherwise, I don't know what I would have been doing up there.
Mm-hmm.
But if I hadn't said yes, I wouldn't have been there to receive it.
Yeah, exactly.
Just things like that, you know?
Well, and that reminds me, Diane, of one of my favorite quotes from Einstein. You know, one of the most important decisions we'll ever make is if whether we see the universe as friendly or hostile. And if we see this, I mean, the universe is intended to be friendly and support us. And when we do say yes and open up, you know, we are taken care of always.
That's true. And as we know from those people who've studied A Course in Miracles, and I think this is from A Course in Miracles, maybe it's from somewhere else, but I remember it this way, is that everything, whatever we do, is always turned to the positive. So even if I had said no originally, somehow that situation would have evolved in such a way that everyone would have been served. So even if I make a mistake, so what? You know? It might be easier if I do the right thing, you know, but even if I don't, it's going to turn around and be okay.
Absolutely. In the end, it's all okay. And I think the way the way I would interpret that myself is just to say that the Course, if we really do open ourselves up and tune in and be present and say yes, just let the Holy Spirit guide us, lead us, and direct us, then we do collapse time. But like you said, eventually we're all going to get there. It's just, do we want to take the fast route or do we want to take the bumpy road, you know? So it's there are tools we can use. But I want to back up just a little bit because I know we've had many conversations. You grew up in Louisiana, Baton Rouge. My nephew lives there now working for Exxon, and you didn't really have any of this spiritual training when you were a child by any means. And I know you moved to Dallas. How old were you or Texas? How old were you when you moved to Texas from Louisiana? About
24.
Okay. And then you got in to be a paralegal.
Yeah, I grew up in Baton Rouge, and when I was 18, I moved to New Orleans and didn't go to sleep for 4 years. I had my wild early 20s in New Orleans, and then I was done. That's where, though, I had a kind of spiritual awakening, another one of those synchronistic events. A friend invited me to a lecture, and at that time I was married. I didn't go anywhere by myself at night or just out with girlfriends or anything like that. I was very sheltered and very controlled at home, but I still said yes. I said, I'm going to go with you to this thing. I don't know what it is, but I'm going. And it turned out to be an introductory lecture for the Inner Peace movement. And it was another one of those things where I could hardly talk on the way home because something had happened inside me, you know, something had awakened. I had been having thoughts of wanting to change my life, feeling sort of imprisoned by the way things were for me at that time. And this was in the mid 70s, I guess. And these people were talking about psychic abilities. They were talking about leadership, about learning for yourself, having goals, organizing your life, all these things that I felt so starved for. And that's what I call the spiritual awakening that I needed. And I knew that I had to follow that path, and I did. And it was, it led me to some difficult moments, some moments when I had to say yes, when I really was afraid. And eventually, because I was changing so much in the way that I viewed myself and how I wanted to live my life, I ended up having to get a divorce, not because I wanted to leave my husband, because I loved him very much and he loved me, but he was not ready to have his wife be so in tune with what she wanted to do with herself, you know, and I could not go back to who I used to be. I could not unsee what I had seen.
Right.
So that was it. I know that that's a common experience. It doesn't look the same for everybody, but it's a common experience for a lot of people who have some sort of spiritual awakening. You have to break from the way things have been. And a new wonderful world develops for you. But that first thing is hard.
Right. Absolutely. Well, obviously it worked for you. You went to work for the movement, right?
I did. I first became a community leader, leading little weekly classes and stuff like that. And then, because I can't stop myself, I eventually became a conference center manager. They had a conference center in New Braunfels, Texas. So it was actually a 60-acre ranch. And believe me, I had been a legal assistant, and that was about the most out there I had ever been. So going to be a ranch manager was another one of those scary things like, hey, you want to be a ranch manager? Sure.
Oh,
no.
Yeah. And there you have it. You were. Yeah.
I don't know anything about horses and cows and all that stuff, but you know.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Septic tanks, all that good stuff.
Yeah. Well, is this movement still in existence?
Yes, although it's much smaller. It's a part of something called the Americana Leadership College. I think it's a branch of that, and that is still in existence. So the leadership, the teaching aspect of it was back then and is called the Americana Leadership College. And it's a wonderful thing. I personally, my own growth went in a little bit different direction, but I attribute that the fact that I survived as long as I have to having made contact with that movement, because it was the thing that allowed me to open the door and let spirit in, you know. And that's when I first started asking myself, are these really my own thoughts, or do thoughts just happen to you? And what are thoughts? And are they real? Do you have to follow them, or do you have any say-so about what you're going to think? And I know those sound like crazy questions, but when you've never questioned what you're thinking, those things go through your mind.
Right.
So without that movement, I don't know what would have happened. So I became a conference center manager in New Braunfels. They have several conference centers, but I also spent a few years in San Juan, Puerto Rico at their center there, and that was a lot of fun.
Wow. Well, so that the good experiences, and in addition to all that, you are let's see, well, you're obviously a great speaker. We know that, we can tell already. You're an astrologer, energy healer. I know you did some massage there, medical massage type.
Medical massage.
Yeah, a meditation instructor, and all sorts of, and now we're going to get into your hypnotherapy in a little bit. But before we go there, all of these interests that you've pursued are all who have made you, as we all do, everything we pursue and learn sort of integrates as part of who we are. And that's what we show up, how we show up every day. But before we get into that, I know somewhere in this, I know you've shared with me, and it's a very powerful story. You had an extreme heart condition that you did flatline, didn't you, with that?
Yeah, this was, about 13 years ago. Well, this is another one of those things where you say yes with a question mark at the end of the sentence, but you say it anyway.
Yeah.
And I was living in Houston doing a job there. And well, this was during my medical massage career, and I was happy doing that. I like doing healing work. But one day I had a townhome, a 3-story townhome. And one day I went out of town. I was going to go visit a friend in Austin, and my neighbor called me and said, Diane, are you okay? Because there's water coming out the top of your garage, which is obviously on the bottom floor. If you picture a 3-story townhome, that's not supposed to be happening. So anyway, it turned out there was a big flood in the house, started on the top floor and went all the way down through the ceilings and walls and floors and everything. And it was such a big disaster that, and the insurance did not pay for it.
Whoa.
So there was no way that as a medical massage person, I was going to ever be able to pay for those repairs. So I had to go back to being a legal assistant, which I didn't want to do at all. But I didn't know at that time that because I was following spirit and as I was being led to go back and do that, that would mean I had insurance, which would mean that I would go in for a checkup for the first time in 5 years, which would mean that I would discover that I had a congenital heart defect, which would mean that I would get an operation that would save my life. So if it hadn't been spirit showing me the challenge of the water disaster and showing me which way to go, I wouldn't be here today.
And the insurance company saying no, which probably seemed like a terrible thing at the time.
I remember sitting in the parking lot of Home Depot in my car crying because I had to go there and get a shop vac to, try to suck up some of this water, saying to spirit, I know you have a reason for doing this, but I don't know what it is. And I'm not happy about it right now.
Oh, yeah. Oh, my gosh.
But it turned, I wouldn't know for a couple of years that was what was happening because I didn't see the pattern until then. I didn't know all of these things were going to fall into place as they did. But while I was in the hospital, it's not a common procedure. It's not like a bypass or something like that, which is no small thing. But this particular one, they go in there and they do a lot of cutting inside your heart. And so I went in on a Tuesday, and on Thursday, I was still in recovery because they weren't sure what was going to happen with me. And I remember halfway waking up, because I was intubated, I wasn't going to be talking or anything, but I remember halfway waking up and realizing I felt super, super tired. I just wanted to sleep. I was very, very tired. But I was aware of the heart monitor, that monitor, whatever you call it, that goes beep, beep, beep. And I realized that I was listening to it start to slow down. It was going beep, beep.
Goodness.
Beep. And pretty soon it stopped.
Ooh.
And I had said goodbye to my life before I went in the hospital, knowing that might happen. But so it was an amazing experience in that I was 100% awake and aware, unable to move, not breathing, no heartbeat. But I have never been more alert. I have never experienced such quiet, because never are you without your breath or your heartbeat, So there was no noise inside of me either, and I have never been more clear-headed. And I looked around, I became curious. I started looking around because I was not there long enough to have one of these experiences where you go places and you meet people. But I have no idea how long I was in there. But it was 100% peaceful, not one iota of fear, nothing threatening, completely comfortable, no pain. And I thought to myself, wow, this is the way it is. There's supposed to be a tunnel. I'm going to look for the tunnel.
Yeah, exactly. I was wondering about the tunnel. Yeah, where's that tunnel?
Yeah, there's a tunnel of light somewhere in here.
Yeah.
And I didn't know what was going to happen. I assumed that there would be one because I heard there was one. But I started looking for the tunnel, and I became aware of this noise that was getting louder and louder and louder. And if you remember back in the days, the early days of the internet, when you got on the internet, there was this
Oh yeah.
sound.
Yeah.
It was sort of like that. It was screechy, and it kept getting louder and louder and louder. And I still couldn't find the tunnel. And so I said, well, God, if this is it, that's fine. But would you please stop that noise? So now I look back, I think that was a little bit arrogant, probably the most profound moment of my life, and I'm complaining. But God had a sense of humor, I suppose. But
Yes.
and then I felt the bed shake, and apparently the nurse had come over there and put her hands on the rail, and she said, may God take her soul into his hands. So, and then there was quiet again, and the nurse across the room asked her, are you going to call it? And this one near me said, she's coming back up. And then I heard beep. There, the monitor gradually began to beep again. And I'm not certain what really happened there. I just know that it may have been me looking for the tunnel that focused my energy enough, to bring me back. But I do know that my experience of being without breath and without a heartbeat was not painful, not scary, not threatening in any way.
Mm-hmm.
And I also realized that the difference between being in the body as what they would call a live person and being in the vicinity as what they would call a dead person, the difference happens that quickly. And there is no space difference because you're in the same location both times. It's a state. It's not a place.
Right.
So I continue to occasionally have flashes of inspiration about that, new things that I realized. I learned later on that icky noise was the sound of brain cells. When you have no blood pressure, it's the sound of brain cells spewing out enzymes to try to pump your blood pressure up. So it's an actual biological thing. And other people who've had near-death experiences have call it different things. Some people call it a chime or a bell or a whistle or something, but it's the same thing. So,
wow. So you healed, and I'm sure that wasn't a quick healing, but you got back to work, or what'd you do? Did you, after you started feeling better?
Well, that particular operation took probably a couple of years to get all the way energized. I went back to work after a couple of months, but then I realized, I knew that Spirit wanted me to do some healing work. So I began doing more energy healing. And also because I had that experience of sort of non-locality, I really couldn't tell where I was. Wherever I looked when I was in that experience, that's where I was. I kind of seemed to move based on where my attention was. So I wanted to know more about the sciences and the arts that have to do with non-duality, with the oneness aspect. And that's when I got into astrology, archetypal astrology. And the particular kind that I did was connected with a form of meditation where you go and you have a conversation with the archetypes of astrology. All the signs and planets represent archetypes, and each of them has characteristics which are represented in our lives. And I had a wonderful teacher, Edwin Steinbrecher, who's passed over now, and he helped all of his students understand the nature of projection, how life moves through us, and the filter that is our ego contorts that life energy as it comes through us based on the training that we receive when we're children. So if I was taught as a child not to trust people, then I find people not to trust all through my life, and that is projection.
Exactly.
And that's just one example, but everything else that we have as habitual experiences in life, those are also representations of projection. And learning to work with that, not just to know about it, but to know what to do with it, has been a real passion for me.
Yeah.
So working with that in meditation was one thing, but also that's also why the hypnotherapy is so much a perfect fit for me, because it takes the subconscious mind where all of these patterns are, all of these taped responses are, these assumptions, and based on root causes in our life, and it brings those into clarity, and then we give the subconscious a different instruction, and boom, life begins to change.
Right.
So I'm here to say that it's possible to come out of it, no matter what you have gone through. I mean, there are many ways to do it. I'm not saying this is the only one, but I know that working directly with the subconscious is such a powerful tool.
Exactly. Well, I remember a few years ago when you got turned on to this particular type of hypnotherapy. What was the gal's name that you became a student of?
Marissa Peer.
Marissa
and
Peer.
She invented the process called rapid transformational therapy. And the reason she called it that is because she really has bypassed a lot of the involved procedures that had there before then. Everybody thought they were necessary. It just, I mean, all of the important stuff is there, but it goes directly to the root cause of when did this start happening? What is the experience that you had that made you make this assumption as a child?
Right.
And you get to that place while you're in hypnosis, very relaxed. By the way, hypnosis is not a form of mind control. I'm not controlling anybody's mind. It's just a form of deep relaxation where you are able to access memories. And then after that, we create a script, which is recorded, and we repeat over and over the new instructions having to do with whatever issue we were working on, and give the client their instructions, their recording, and they listen to for at least 3 weeks, and life starts to change. You begin to say yes to things that you couldn't say yes to before. And I mean, it has to do with physical things, and it has to do with emotional things, mental, whatever.
Yeah. Well, and Ellen, you were kind enough to do a session for both myself and Ellen, and it was a beautiful, amazing process, and so personal. That's not so you took the time to ask questions, to take notes, write a script, do the recording, and it's a big process, a huge process, and so I think that it would be helpful in anything. Talk about, one thing I read that you had written down here, which is one of my favorite things. And I'm a big follower of Bruce Lipton. I love his work, The Biology of Belief, and how, what you said, the actual cells of our body change the chemicals in them when we change our thoughts. And he says something very similar to that, but there's such power in that, that if we could just change our thoughts, we can truly change our reality. But it takes, I think, getting into that unconscious, buried, those belief systems that we don't even, and triggers that we don't even know are there. And that's what the work you're doing is, uncovering those and plugging in new patterns of thought, right?
Of course. Yeah. And if you believe that you can heal from something, then you give yourselves permission. and you give yourselves energy to change. New chemicals are created, the membranes of your cells. And I have also read Bruce Lipton, so yeah, we could talk that language. The membranes of the cells can accept that. The organs begin to work together. There have been people who were in comas that we play a recording for, telling them how they're healing, how they're going to wake up, how it's going to be when they're awake again. And when they wake up, they say, I don't know you, but I remember your voice from when I was in there. Wow. You know, it is getting through. There are so many levels of us that are conscious and aware when we seem to be not so. If you're laying in a bed in a coma.
Yeah, that's why they say whenever you visit somebody who appears to be unconscious in the hospital, be mindful that there is a part of them that is very aware and taking in the energy you're bringing in, the words you're speaking, all of it. So speak in the affirmative and send that energy out. So that's so important.
Right. I was, gone, and I could hear everything, so you don't become deaf.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it's, I think this is so powerful too. And this was something that probably 30 some years ago, Deepak Chopra, one of his first books, Perfect Health, was the first time I'd been introduced to this idea that and the time, some people say a year, some say 6 months, either way, that he said in that book, which I was like, oh my God, every 6 months, your body, your organs are totally renewed, from our eyeballs to our skin, to our heart, to our lungs. And so the only reason that that we don't really see the changes that are possible is because we're not creating an environment for change to happen, because we're bringing all that sludge from the past in. So that's the power of the work you do, is to go deep and to pull out that old tape and put in a new one.
And that's so true. And I'm also reminded of a lot of Greg Braden's work. He talks about that kind of thing too. I believe I've seen a recording, a video of his in which a woman's cancer tumor visually changed as people were praying for her,
right,
in this particular session. But absolutely. And it's, darn it, I can't remember what I was going to tell you. I was going to tell you something.
Well, I was just, as you were speaking, I was thinking too of the book Zero Limits. Well, it's what was the Joe Vitale. He actually had written this book based on the miracles. And I just think that these miracles are the way it's meant to be, of Dr. Hugh Len, who was able to use these the forgiveness practice, the Ho'oponopono, to heal people. And because it really is about blasting out a program that supports healing rather than, and I think too, Diane, we're compassionate beings, and sometimes we all of a sudden buy into the fear or the sadness or what have you. And I think as healers and ministers, it's important for us to recognize that we sometimes have to hold that space for people, and you do that beautifully.
Well, thank you, Charlotte. I remember what I was going to say, and that is that when I first became aware of Marissa Peer's work, it was because she was doing a program online about immunity. And she did a hypnosis for anyone who was listening. And she talked about envisioning little soldiers, in your body. Mm-hmm. And there were soldiers, and there were generals, and they had the enemy, which was, the virus. And then they had all the little white cells and various other things. It sounds like a cartoon, but the truth is the subconscious does not differentiate between things that the way you would describe them to a child or to an adult. If you can use your imagination to invoke the power of those cells in your body, they will do the job you're asking them to do. So all parts of us work together. And we can make ourselves, and this is going to sound crazy, we can make ourselves younger. You can't turn back the clock, but you can make your body more like it was as you were younger, or make pain go away, or simply heal yourself. And this is not just physical stuff, but it's also emotional stuff. Now, I always want to say when I bring that up, that this is not a blame situation where if you are unable to heal yourself, that something's wrong with you or you're not trying hard enough. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that there's still something in there that is not healed, that is not allowing the healing to take place. And you simply keep going.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I think we're at a time that there's so much information available, and that we, if we would just tap into it, we could overcome anything. And it's there for the asking now. We just have to ask and be willing to do it a little different than we have in the past. And more people are.
And be aware of the kind of resistance that we tend to put up. One thing that people tend to put up is, I'm too busy. I don't have time to listen to that tape. Somehow I haven't had time to listen to that tape for the last week. Or, so-and-so won't let me, I'm going to lose my relationship if I change. There's a lot of reasons that we give for not being ready. And this is one form of healing that you must give permission and be on board with it for it to work, because the process is actually allowing change within yourself. And if you don't really want to change, then you are accepting the way things are, and just be honest about it. There's no judgment there.
Right. Exactly.
But we have to be willing to do it. And there's so much burnout in the world these days. And people don't know which way to turn because they're just tired. I see it all the time. And I hope that people, not that they have to turn to what I'm doing, but turn to someone who can help you, because there is help out there. There are compassionate caregivers out there. And there's also a lot of inexpensive resources, so just know that if you are open to love in whatever form spirit chooses to give it, it will be there for you.
Yeah, indeed. And that's a beautiful way to put it out there. Well, so you're doing the hypnotherapy. Are you still doing your astrology work?
I do it occasionally. I don't really promote it that much. But I do it in my own personal life because I like to know what's going on. I can tell the difference between Mercury retrograde and not retrograde. Just by the way it feels. But I'm making a joke about that. But it's nice to be able. It's a science, It's a way of being able to put into words something that you're having a feeling about or having an experience that you don't really know why it's there. And the sooner we get the lesson, the sooner that experience gets easier, you know?
Exactly.
So I do astrology for myself. And, sometimes I get people calling me and asking for an update on their chart. So I do a transit chart for them, which is, charting the planets where they are currently in the sky, on the chart, which shows where the planets were when they were born, because the various angular relationships between those planets tells us about the moving energies, moving experiences that people would have. And something else I do a lot of, or I'm starting to do a lot of, is weddings.
I was going to bring that up. I think that's fantastic.
I am loving it.
Yeah.
This is one of those things I did not see coming. Came out of the blue, and it is the most wonderful experience to be the officiant at a wedding, or even just a ceremony. If somebody, I'm scheduled to do one now where the people are already married, so they don't really need me to sign papers. They just wanted a ceremony because they're having a second wedding.
Yeah,
And
commitment ceremony or recommitment.
Okay.
Renewal of vows, really.
So being in that energy and being an ADL minister, opening the door to that and other forms of sacred ceremonies has been so beautiful. I never in a million years knew I would be doing that, but I'm very grateful. I love it. And
there is, I love doing weddings too. I for many years I did a lot of weddings and I loved it. And I'm thrilled that you're enjoying it too. And any of you all out there, if you want to do a recommitment ceremony or get married, there's Diane. She's your gal. And if you live in this area, or she'll travel, right? You'd go to Hawaii, wouldn't you?
Oh, yeah.
So see, there's no limits on that as well. So anyway, well, Diane, you've got so many things. It's the blessings that you share with the world. And, just to sum it up, you're our wonderful administrator in the Alliance of Divine Love. You do a terrific job there. But even more than that, I see you as such a spiritual healer and just a ceremony giver. And this hypnotherapy work is so profound and deep. And the astrology, all of it is, I don't know how you keep it all going and talk about having a lot of balls in the air. You've certainly got that, but I can just see your work evolving and becoming something really grand, your ministry being something really cool. And I know Spirit's got a plan for that too. So if anything else you'd like to share with us that you're into, or thoughts about life, or what's, just thoughts for the group listening here?
Well, I guess what I'm learning is that these days, my experience is that I'm getting busier and busier and busier and busier. And we can panic or we can just let go, and I recommend letting go because I don't know how I'm going to do all the things I'm going to do. I don't even know what's coming. I remember reading something about uncertainty said by Eckhart Tolle, and he said we have to become comfortable with uncertainty. Otherwise, we do panic. And the thing about it is, Spirit does have a plan. I 100% believe that. We don't know where we're going. We don't have to know.
Right.
You wake up today, you live in the present moment. You say yes whenever it feels like the right thing to do, and you know that you will be protected at all times, forever and ever.
Indeed. Well, and if we did that, then we would be claiming our place in a friendly universe, which is what the universe is here to support us. And I think that a lot of this rocking and rolling and huge transition we're seeing in the world today is really just shaking all that doesn't need to be there out of it, all of us, waking us up. Yeah. So there, as I said earlier, there are means and tools out there for us to use. And you mentioned the same thing, there's a lot of support, and right here is a amount of support worth tapping into. And Diane, your website is originalresilience.com. And I tell us how you came up with that. Originalresilience.com.
Well, Original Resilience. First, I started with just resilience because I am so personally tapped into rising from the dead. And I wasn't thinking of a near-death experience when I said that. I meant rising from the dead of the end of a meaningful experience and having to start in a sense as a new person, which we all go through numerous times in life. The end of a relationship, the end of a job, the end of a living situation, something that we thought would last forever doesn't. And we don't know what to do at first, and we're afraid to let go of it. And yet at some point we gather our energies together and we start over and we become a new person with huge vistas of possibility that we wouldn't have otherwise had. And we discover things about ourselves we would never have learned if we hadn't gone through that kind of death.
Yeah.
So I'm very tuned into resilience as that kind of rebirth. And when I put the word original with it, it's because I was thinking of the kind of rebirth or the kind of energy we come into this lifetime with. Your original resilience. This is what you were born with. Your authentic self, who you were before any conditioning happened to you. Who you are in your deepest core. That's your original resilience. So that's what I want to help people touch when I do the hypnotherapy work, although it probably bleeds into everything else that I do. But that's what I was thinking.
Well, I love it. I think I love it. And now I have a better understanding of where that all came together. And yes, you are resilient. Since I've known you not a very long time, you just continue to rise from the ashes, and you're just being reborn every moment, which is really what life is about for all of us. It's just, are we going to cling on to the old, or are we going to just let go and see what spirit has in store?
Yeah, there's no way to hang on. You can pretend you're going to hang on and then it will be taken away. And I don't say that as a threat.
Yeah.
I mean, it's, that's the way spirit helps us grow, know, and clinging to something is what causes the pain. If we let go, then we just experience letting go.
Right. And there's a simple line in A Course in Miracles that says everything is for your own best interest. So if we would really believe that and accept that, even what appears to be bad can be the greatest blessing if we just allow it to be so. And that's what we're here to learn and do.
Getting a lot of chills from hearing you say that. It's true.
So Diane, in winding down here, if people are interested in contacting you, what's the best way to do so?
Well, you can send me an email, info@originalresilience.com. And frankly, I need to look this phone number up because I've changed I have a new cell. And if you'll hold on 2 seconds here, I will give you the special phone number for Original Resilience, and that is 828-513-7466. And so I carry that cell phone around with me, but I'll know it's for that. If somebody gives me a call, send me an email. And by the way, if you're interested in the rapid transformational therapy, there's a 20-minute free consultation just to discover if this is something would work for you. So you don't have to make a commitment or anything like that. It's just to get to know what it is you're interested in and see if it would help you. So if you want information about that, just you can go to the website www.originalresilience.com, and you can book an appointment on there for that 20-minute session, and then we'll have a chat. Awesome.
Well, I'm inspired, and you inspire me, Diane, every day. You're just an amazing person, and I'm glad to be able to share all the good you do with more people. And you're a blessing, and I know spirits put you here for a big cause and reason, and let's see where that all goes. So if you guys are interested, go to Diane's website, originalresilience.com. And is there a contact tab on there or not?
Yes.
Okay. So they could always find you through that if you missed some of that. But in the meantime, the permanent home of this conversation will be on YouTube. And so you can find this through my YouTube channel. youtube.com/Inspire You TV, Inspire YOU TV. And with that, I'll put your phone number and your contact information in the notes so people can go there in case they didn't catch it live. So Diane, thank you so much and appreciate you. And this has been great sharing you with all our friends out there.
Thank you so much. It was my honor. I appreciate the time.
Well, thank you. And everybody, give Diane a call if you're called to do so. And many blessings to everybody. And namaste.